All right. So this one, the first one is when owners or providers come to us and they want a budget,
Mm-hmm.
but oftentimes they don't have drawings.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't settled on the space. so the term that we use for this is a ROM budget, a rough order of magnitude. So can you go into a little bit more detail on what is a ROM budget?
Yeah. So a ROM budget, rough order of magnitude, it's really just putting together some pricing for typically budgetary conversations, right? A lot of our clients are, large corporations, national corporations that do plan their budgeting in advance, well in advance, do plan their capital expenses thoroughly. So a lot of, it's kind of that cart before the horse conversation, right? In order to do that, you need to understand roughly what is that project going to cost, which is tough to do without plans, right? There's a lot of intricate details that could be involved to swing the numbers one way or the other. We do it a lot for clients, right? We based it obviously off of historical data, recent historical data that we have, our understanding of what the project's going to be, and our understanding of the program for the client, right? Most of our clients have a certain program, so we understand what finishes are going in there and what it kind of looks like. So we're able to put the ROM budgets together fairly quickly, get them what they need to make their decisions. One thing I always say about ROM budgets is depending on where in the process you're requesting a ROM budget kind of fluctuates or changes the swing that you would experience, right? Early on, you very well may have a 15 to 20% swing one way or the other. Hopefully
that could be huge.
Absolutely. You're talking, a few $1 million, 20%, 15% is big. Obviously, the more information we have, the better we can nail it down. And the more we're involved in that process also, right? We can provide a ROM budget. And when you have 50% drawings or when we're at 50% drawings, we can kind of dial it in. 90% we can really, really dial it in, especially with the program work because we know their finishes. But you're going to have those swings the earlier on you're trying to get them. For us, our goal is always to give our clients enough information to act and not kind of hamstring them later on, right? So we're always going to kind of go, when we're talking ROM budgets, you're typically going to see ROM budgets on the higher end of what you're going to spend on that project, but it is accounting for somewhat worst case scenario, or should be at least.
Yeah, and it makes a difference if it is a national client who has a program and who has a spec book and they know what they're looking for versus somebody who's a single office practitioner client and they have no idea.
Yeah.
So they might have some thoughts on what they're looking for, but they don't know if they're going to want solid surface countertops.
Yep.
The exam rooms, what is that going to look like? Cabinets, and it does come back to the cost because all that adds or takes away.
Yeah, and I mean, really, obviously the big components are, your structure, your MAP, your steel. Those are the big components, but and we can typically understand and account for those when we know what they're looking for, right? We've got to know what how much power they need there. We got to know how much water they need there. Are they doing flush valve toilets? Are they doing tank type toilets? That'll dictate some of that. So we need some information, but to your point, like even finishes can cause a big swing in things, right? You can one material for your millwork, for your cabinetry or your countertops could cost you, $50,000 for your space, right? And all of a sudden you change it to a solid surface and more of this different color or pattern you like on the laminate, and all of a sudden you're talking $120,000 for your millwork, right? So even down to the finishes can swing those numbers significantly.
And the beauty of and why we're able to provide these rough order of magnitude estimates, these ROM budgets, is because of the historical data.
Yeah,
doing a bunch of these outpatient clinics, primary care type clinics, smaller medical facilities, you have the data, right? So we know, okay, if you're going to have eight exam rooms versus 10 or 6 versus 12, like you just know what those costs are. And sometimes, it's challenging. I find it on the smaller clinics
Mm-hmm.
because you don't have, like, if it's a 2,000 or 2,500 square foot space versus a 10,000 square foot space, the numbers just don't always translate down evenly
Mm-hmm.
or multiply up. So there's a lot, because if you need a panel upgrade, you're going to need it for the smaller, and it's the smaller or the big, and it's the same.
Yeah. You feel it more on
cost.
those smaller projects,
Yeah.
right? And all of a sudden you're talking on a $5 million project, if it swings up, $100,000, relatively a drop in the bucket, right? It's talking about a $250,000, small occupied refresh type project, and all of a sudden it swings 100. That's a big difference.